As someone in sales, have you ever looked at a deal deep in the pipeline, fully forecasted and thought, this looks like a great opportunity, but I've actually got no idea whether it's going to close? I have. And after more than 30 years in B2B sales, leading teams and closing deals across both local and federal government and taking some of the most complex industries in the enterprise space like transport, communications, banking and finance, entertainment and retail, I realized this wasn't just a gut feeling, it was a gap. So over the past 8 years, I've built a sales model designed to pinpoint what stops or slows down a deal and show you exactly how you can take steps to immediately close the deals faster. Since then, it's been used by some of the largest organizations in Australia to accelerate closing speed, reduce the cost of sale, and give both leaders and sales reps a clear, shared picture of how to win more deals. I'm Andrew Phillips, and I've led national sales for companies like Unisys, Nortel, Redify, and Dimension Data. I've worked thousands of deals to understand exactly what separates the deals that close fast from the ones that stall, slip, or you lose. I've also wrote the book, CEO-Led Sales, to fix the disconnect I kept seeing between executive strategy and on-the-ground selling. Today, I help CEOs and sales leaders install a system that gives their teams clarity on where their deals stand and how to move them forward faster. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how it works. Let me take you back to where this all started. At the time, I was leading sales across Asia Pacific for a large global firm. One of the biggest deals we'd landed was a major federal government agency operating in the national security space. It was a game changer. That contract alone took our business from $24 million to $45 million. We delivered well. The relationship grew, and for 5 years, it was a solid partnership. Then we lost the renewal. When we look back at what happened, it wasn't the delivery or the price that cost us the deal, it was who we were talking to. We'd spent most of our time with the people who would benefit from our solution, but we didn't have the right engagement with the people who actually had to buy it from us, or the ones who had to implement it. And when their concerns surfaced late in the game, we weren't prepared. We hadn't built the right relationships or addressed the risks that mattered most to them. What struck me most was how little visibility we had into our actual position. We thought we were in a strong spot. The reality was we didn't have a way to assess that properly. We were relying upon feelings, not facts. At that point, I started asking a different question, one I hadn't seen answered properly in any sales methodology I'd used. How do we actually know if we deserve to win this deal? So I went back through the years of deals that I'd been involved in, the wins and the losses, small deals, large deals, government, private sector, tech deals, services deals. I reviewed everything. It wasn't immediate, but patterns began to show up. And the more I looked, the clearer it became. Every successful deal had 4 things in place, and every deal that failed had one or more of those 4 things missing. And once I started tracking them, I changed how I approached everything. Don't worry, I'll explain this. And then you'll be able to see how you can implement this in your sales processes to help close those deals. So I began to score each deal on 4 forces. That's when it started to work its way into how I built teams and how I reviewed the pipeline and how we pursued major opportunities. And eventually it became the core of the book I wrote and the foundation of what we now help other businesses put in place. There are 4 core forces to every deal. I call them the 4 C's: credibility, capability, commitment, and control. First, we have credibility. Think of credibility like a security pass. You might know the building, you might know someone inside, but unless you've been cleared to walk into the executive boardroom, you're not getting in. That's what credibility gives you: access. We measure it with a single question. Can we get in front of the CEO in 7 days? If the answer is no, this negatively affects your ability to win the deal because it tells us we haven't built the engagement or relevance required to reach the highest levels in the organization. Now, there are 2 factors that influence your overall score: knowledge and trust. If you know everything about their industry, but they don't trust you, it's worthless. If they trust you, but you haven't done your homework to learn about their industry, you're still at risk. So we ask, do you understand their business, their market, their strategic pressures, their regulatory environment? If the answer is no, then you're not ready to sell anything serious yet. I'll use a deal we worked on with a freight and logistics company to illustrate how the model works in practice. They were already a client, but this was a more substantial request, a strategic opportunity that, if won, would change the way they ran a major part of their business. And for us, it would be a substantial deal. From the get-go, we had strong credibility. We'd worked with them before. We knew the logistics space well. We were already in the room with senior leadership, including the CEO. And when we spoke, it was clear we understood their operating environment, including the challenges, margins, and where their bottlenecks were. This put us in a very strong position to win the deal. The second assessment criteria is capability. Capability is whether you can actually prove you do what you say you can and whether the client believes you can. We ask, can we showcase the same solution in their industry and region? That's key. Not, have we done something like this somewhere on the planet, but can we point to someone nearby, like them, where we have already delivered this at scale? We once worked with a professional services firm pitching to a government agency. Their proposal looked strong on paper, but when we ran the capability check, it turned out all of their examples were in the US, with a different sector of clients and a couple of years out of date. The client needed recent, local, in-sector proof. They didn't have it. Again, there are two factors that affect this, and they are competence and quantum. Competence is your ability to do the work and whether you are rated very highly by your current clients. Anything below a 90% rating here just makes you average. Quantum is how many times you've done it and how recently. One without the other gives you a weak chance. Whereas if you tick the box on both, then you have a significant advantage, a high right to win. This also stops you from bluffing your way into deals that you can't actually deliver. It also stops you from over-indexing on one big win from 5 years ago and thinking it's still relevant. With the freight company, we were capable. We had delivered comparable solutions in the logistics and transport space, and we could speak directly to reference sites that they would recognize. That gave them confidence that we knew what we were doing and that we could do it again. Next, we have commitment. Commitment is about whether the client actually is buying from you. Have they bought from you before? Are they buying from you now? And just as importantly, would they choose to buy from you again? Think of it as a product trial. Just because someone downloaded a free version doesn't mean they're ready to upgrade. The real signal is whether they see enough value to invest again and whether they renew or expand, or advocate for you when the stakes are higher. In the early stages, everyone's on their best behavior, but the real test of commitment is whether you're delivering on the contract and whether the client is genuinely satisfied with the experience and the outcome. Have you had a hard conversation yet? Have they seen you follow through on something that mattered? Have you proven you're reliable? Not just when it's easy, but when it's uncomfortable. So, here we ask, is the client currently buying from us? It's a yes or no. If the answer is yes, then we dig deeper by scoring two factors, satisfaction and outcome. You can have a client who's technically getting the outcome they paid for, but they're frustrated by the experience. You can also have a very satisfied client who's getting a great service, but you haven't delivered what the contract promised. Remember here, the beneficiary could be liking the solution or services or product, but the person who signed off on the purchase is looking and says, this is not actually what we purchased. This can be a problem. In either case, the score suffers. You need both. To help you understand this further, I'll talk about two types of deals. Stepping stone deals, which are small, early engagement that build the path to a bedrock deal, which are game-changing opportunities. Stepping stone deals are smaller, logical deals that prove you can deliver to contracts. And when you start pursuing the bedrock deal, the client nods their head because it's logical that you'll be pursuing the larger bedrock deal. If you haven't earned the trust through stepping stone deals, a bedrock deal is extremely difficult to win. Again, with the freight company, our commitment score was strong. They had previously done smaller engagements with us. We delivered reliably. The feedback was positive from all levels. That meant when the bedrock opportunity came up, we weren't starting from scratch. They already knew what it was like to work with us. And lastly, we have control. Control is about more than just being involved in the deal. It's about shaping it. Think of it like building a custom house. Lots of people can give the client bricks and tools, but if the final floor plan, layout, and design still look like someone else's blueprint, you weren't the architect. You were just on site. Control is all about being the architect. When you're truly in control of a deal, you don't just respond to the client's ideas, you help shape them. Your thinking starts to show up in how they define the problem, how they frame success, and how they structure the deal. We call that having your fingerprints on the deal. It means that when you look at the solution they're leaning toward, you can clearly see your influence in it. Maybe it's a term you introduced, a structure you suggested, a pain point you uncovered that's now central to the project. That's control. Now, we break control into two parts, mastery and influence. Mastery is whether, for this specific client and this specific challenge, you're the best in the world. Not generally, not that every client and not for every deal, but you can show your approach is the best for what they need today. Influence is whether they know that, whether your thinking has actually changed the way they are scoping the work. Are they starting to use your language? Are they prioritizing what you help them see? If not, then the deal could go ahead exactly the same without you. You're not in control. You're an option, not the architect. If it's not there, you're not in control. So how do you bring this all together? You look at your deal through the 4 C's: credibility, capability, commitment, and control. Each C gives you a different view of risk and opportunity. If you're struggling to get executive access, that's a credibility issue. If you can't point to a track record that matters to them, that's a capability issue. If they've never worked with you before, or they weren't thrilled when they did, that's a commitment issue. And if the deal still looks like it was written by someone else, that's a control issue. The best part, once you know which of these is weak, you know what to fix. You're no longer guessing, you're selling with impact. You have sales with purpose. And when sales leaders start using these 4 forces as a team, it changes the way they review deals, coach salespeople, and make pursuit decisions. It's like switching from being a passenger to a navigator. You don't just see where the deal is, you see what's holding it back and how you move it forward. So that's the method. After 1,000+ deals, the biggest shift didn't come from working harder. It came from seeing clearer. When you know where a deal stands and what to do next, you move faster. You stop chasing and you start closing. There is so much opportunity in the marketplace that you don't need to pursue deals where you haven't earned your right to win. If that's what you want more of now, we run live workshops that walk your team through this method step by step, detailing how to score every deal. Real deals, real plans, real progress. I've left the link below where you can book an intro call with me and our team. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.